It is the 7th day of July in the year 2017. So I want to talk about something that's not easy to talk about. I feel like there are children that are more receptive to the truth that the tooth fairy and Santa Claus doesn't exist. But there are many adult women, many adult men, but specifically women, that are going to be in denial of something that I've been suspicious of for some time. But it takes time for Google data results, for authors and society to come up to a point where they're not going to be shamed by society by being researchers and looking at the real human nature. What makes us tick? What are women looking up with regards to porn when they do look it up? Now, additional information that I would like to know is, and I might have to buy the book or get the book for the additional information. Um, it obviously this is going to be data that's new data from the last decade because the amount of internet entertainment and the influence of the internet, it's only been around for so long. And I would say that before the internet and before people were able to, at least in their own mind, surf anonymously, although the powers that be know who's looking up what. And there's actually a darker, potential, sinister outcome to them knowing what women are looking at the worst of the worst. And this could be playing into things to happen in America later. But before I go there, I do want to say for years, and you've heard, nearly on the verge of tears, why aren't there more women protesting the rapes? How long have you known me and known that that's been my main topic? And also note that alienates me from nearly all women that don't like a guy like me asking that question. I don't see other women that are going, yeah, Alex, raise the real questions about consciousness of our society. There's also in people's desire for what they believe is liberation, they just forget, like with everything else, moderation is key. So someone could be absolutely intoxicated off of sexuality, just like alcohol and drugs. Just because we have the freedom to express ourselves and be weird doesn't mean it's right to be a certain way all the time, just because you have your freedom. Yeah, you also have freedom to eat candy bars all day. Do you think that's the best way to go about life? The question is, how does marijuana or marijuana addiction, that's another topic, but how does pornography addiction within elements of the female society, how does that affect the political world? When people are desensitized to violence against women, and not just pornography, but what's in television, and it's in supposed professional wrestling, and there are other things going on, and people are desensitized, you don't think that has an effect on the population? Now, whether you knew it or not, and people like Chris Hedges from, I believe, Truth Out reposted it, but there is violent pornography featuring basically U.S. troops or military troops raping women in villages. Rape is traditionally used as a weapon of war. The rise in this type of violent pornography that's become accessible for children of all ages everywhere, where it wasn't for children of all ages, say 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago, it has something to do with what they're planning for American women in the future once we're occupied by the foreign armies. I'm convinced of that. I became convinced of that once I became aware of the potential for a future war, the sexualization of our society, and the lack of love in relationships. Seeing how I've been treated, seeing how, and maybe the 20 to 30 women that I've slept with, probably closer to 30, how empty it felt, how devoid of appreciation for me as the soul speaking these things. They were attracted to me regarding my TV show. It was Celebrity Cult of Status. To this day, at the age of 37, I still have never met a female on the earth that respects me for me, who's A, attracted to me, but B, appreciates the things that I speak of, and C, or three, my soul, beyond just what I talk about and beyond my physical appearance. I'm a good soul, and I'm an old soul. And I feel sometimes that nothing short of another female old soul uh, would work for me because it would need that level of soul empathy for it to work. There's three elements, folks. There's soul appreciation, there's appreciating the person, and then there's the body. And just like I said, what makes us up? There's the genetics from our ancestry, there's our soul memory, and then there's our personality, you know. And people don't necessarily think about that. And they don't necessarily think about that with regards to sexuality. There are countless women, for reasons we don't understand, that are solely interested in procreating more Neanderthal killer murder males, despite all the feminism. A lot of this feminism stuff that we have been hearing in the last decade, it's like, okay, so that's what you say, and then we look at brass tacks, and you're still allowing those women to be victimized by men overseas while you prop up a fake feminism in America. While your what? Your number one issues happens to be researching meditation online and organic food. How are women not understanding where the disease of this world is coming from? And it isn't solely in not eating Monsanto, or not going to McDonald's, or not, drinking Diet Coke with aspartame. Why is it still difficult for the women of this culture with all this technology and smartphones to realize what goes around comes around? They have picked the men that they have picked. And by and large, women are not attracted, sexually or otherwise, to activist men or men trying to make a difference. In fact, it appears to be a turnoff, even if they have those fetish interests on YouTube of watching men speaking truth. When you look at their relationships, I'm not seeing any of these women bragging about what their husband or their boyfriend does or writes or says as an awake spirit. And to me, that's a real example of stand by your man. Not get down and give head to your man or the dominant one or the one that you're dominant over, but the man that's actually doing something for the society. Where are the women bragging about the men in their lives that are doing anything about anything? Where are the women whose sexuality has something to do with intellectual good soul fetish? Not hardcore BDSM, 50 Shades of Grey, but something higher. Will we ever experience that in human form, or do we literally have to be in a upgraded Homo sapien body on another planet in another incarnation? Do I need to be on a different planet where the brain structure of those women is different, to where I don't have to play games with them? If I was to play a game with them and try to get them in bed and be someone that I'm not, which I refuse to do. I've also seen situations where women that were very adamant about having sex with me pretended to be a certain way in that first couple of hours until the next day, where the real person came out once they got what they want. Once they got what they want. And physicality is a trap. I think about the woman that traveled to hang out from Arizona up here, and I realize all she's doing is just being an average human. She had no knowledge of what I spoke of, no knowledge of me really at all. I was just a male that hit some physical buttons, I guess, in a good way, who happened to be in a really cool off-grid part of Colorado. But you add in the other aspects of myself and my beliefs and the things I put on YouTube, and that's not a turn on. That's a turn off. That's really interesting. As I also see that my audience base is 95% male, as well as the support coming in is 95% male, as well as the feedback that comes in is 95% male. So let's discuss this, as well as the compliments that come in. They are nearly always from homosexual men. I like your pretty face. And it's like, I'm not going to hate you for you, but I'm not going to be ashamed for saying, whoa, this world needs a shift in consciousness. I need a shift in consciousness. I need to see the appreciation from the heterosexual female, just to make sure we're not that far gone. But it appears we're that far gone. It appears we're that far gone. I have witnessed the worst men that you can imagine, it seems, worshipped by so many of these women. Furthermore, I have not seen people come to the aid of Emily in any way, shape, or form for exercising her First Amendment, even though she pissed on the flag. There are even women calling for her to be hurt. I've seen women call for men and other women to be raped in prison. So I realize, and I'm coming up to this point now, by and large, I now believe the women of this culture are pro-rape. and pro-bad men, anti-good men. And I started to talk about this a few years ago, but now the problem is worse a few years ago. A few years ago, at least a few women would get back to me or, try to give me maybe some praise regarding who I am. And now it's flatlined. Now the things that I'm talking about are more true than ever. When they're going, Alex, we kind of did think that the things that you were talking about were mentally ill 5 years ago. And now we're seeing articles like this that are really validating the things that myself were concerned about. That, see, when I came into this planet, I had a preconceived notion of women that was positive, that was an overestimation. And I don't know why that was. And there's a part of me that yearns to go back to the planet where women are real women, where women are loving, where women are intimate, where women are affectionate, where women are nurturers. And those few of you that think you are nurturers, and maybe you're not, and your nurturing nature may have left with your mother. Because I don't see any evidence. There's more to life than just procreating babies and adding to the world's population. What about loving the elements of the population that are here, that were once babies, that are now trying to be men? Where are those men recognized by anyone? And then how can anyone act like they're surprised as to why things are the way they are? I don't know how much I'll be able to get done in the next 4 years via writing, but so much of what I'm saying should be written, because now there's a world that it'll still reject me for these ideas. The women will still hate me. But see, by being true to myself and being honest, eventually women will find my work that don't hate me, that understand that I don't bring these things up to beat anybody up. I'm literally looking at why our reality is the way that it is. And we have to look at the men and women of this planet. Okay. It's not looking at global warming. It's not even necessarily looking at the aspartame in that bottle. It's not blaming Monsanto on you reading your genes right and being with a fucking Neanderthal. That's really not Monsanto's fucking fault. But see, a lot of people fall into this trap because they're avoiding the upgrade of their own sexuality. Now, is it even possible? Could their sexuality even be upgraded? Is that a pipe dream? Are we literally not built like that? We can choose to be abstinent, but at the base level of our animal sexuality, how much of that really can be upgraded? How much of what I'm saying right now is completely pointless as long as we continue to live on Earth? Because things are going to continue to get more carnal. We haven't hit bottomed out yet with this hate, right, of the Middle Eastern human. But what's troubling is seeing so many women that I believe hate the Middle Eastern human as well, that will make love to a man that will rape a woman overseas. Women of the society that will cheer when someone's hurt or a woman's hurt if they're seen to be the enemy of society, even if they're another woman or another woman. What I saw last night, what I saw in the last 24 hours, as I've made my videos, are no women coming to the aid of another woman being threatened with rape with a crowbar or murder. Now we're reaching a new level of bottom. Now we're reaching a new level of bottom. So you're saying don't even give it energy, don't even give it. Well, okay. But just because you're not giving it energy doesn't mean that there aren't 50 other women giving it energy in support of the fucking rapist men threatening Emily because she pissed on a flag. That is fucked up. And I woke up an hour ago knowing I had to talk to you about this. American women appear pro-rape to me at this point, especially white women. Okay. Very few of them do I perceive as being compassionate to the Middle Eastern male or female. Very few of the Middle Eastern Americans that I've come across that are female care as well. So there's something about even if they're Muslim, that supposedly is like the opposite thing, right? Of a Satanist or evil, although I see evil in their religion as well. Perhaps that's why they're silent. Maybe they believe that if that woman was to be defended against rape, that Allah would have intervened. I don't know what their thinking is, but I know that whether it's a Middle Eastern woman who's in America with some cultural belief systems that she may have had forced down her throat, or whether it's an American white female that doesn't know nothing but this culture and just choose your own spirituality. Oh, that's their karma. We see the fake spiritualists of our society that have had the freedom in this culture without a chain around their neck to say what needs to be said without someone stoning them in public. Women have a freedom in this country that they don't have, it seems, anywhere. Although there are other places that are decent, the world isn't just the Middle East. There are other places to where the rights of women are being noticed. But where are their real rights for women if you don't have a society that is yet evolved enough to a point to where they're not going to allow this madness just because enough of them have a horny gene to fuck the barbarian and not be turned on by a good man. Nice guys finish last. That's what comes up when we look at the woman married to a man who ranted about wanting to murder another woman with a razor. I can't believe this is taking place. You can now type in Elamy Lance, and there's a fake page put up where all these men are sharing their violent rape fantasies and the women that love them. There are women there too. One of them was even named Emily. And they're like, fuck this bitch, fuck this bitch. Fuck you, pissed on the flag. You got what's coming to you. We have a pro-rape female culture here in the United States that is less afraid to be vocal about their sickness. Now we have other women going, what the fuck? I mean, really, this is a surprise to you? Let's read this. Google researcher, porn featuring violence against women is more popular among women than men. Okay. Let me just say this before we get started. It's not good to touch something that's not yours. I think my computer was broken. I need to check my email. The computer was sitting there. It was the year 2009. I had moved in with a couple yoga girls. They didn't know me very well. I didn't know them very well. I think maybe they were attracted to me on the physical outside self and maybe my soft spiritual side. So some women, especially Portland women, are really into non-opinionated, feminized men. They like to have them around as pets if they have a few good attributes, but not if they're a real political independent thinker and they have a passion. I was really anti-vaccine then because of the swine flu scare. I think that scared them. I think that scared them because at that point, a lot of us were scared in the summer of 2009. And we were afraid the government would force us to take vaccines. Because I was a part of that don't trust the government movement, I came across as a freak to them. And it wasn't long before I was looking for a new place to live. But I remember that day, and I opened up her computer because I wanted to get on email real quick. It wasn't a big deal. And what was on the computer as I typed in for Hotmail? Hogtie.com, which is a site where women are featured with ropes and things of that nature. And there's worse things out there that people watch that I have no interest in watching, even though I have feelings, strong feelings on a physical level at times, but not certain things that I feel that others are watching that involve simulated murder, that involve blood, that's straight out of Tales from the Crypt. How can this many humans around the world be into that and the idea of aliens having sex with humans, which is also popular? With regards to the violent pornography, right, that someone might be into, simulated gang rape, I'm curious how much of that may include aliens in light of Katy Perry's E.T. But yes, things like the BDSM culture and popularity that is brainwashing has led to, as this article says, the popularity of 50 Shades of Grey. I'll tell you one more story, and then I'll read this. Last year, when I was running food at not a great restaurant in town where they go through people like left and right, their main like work pool seems to be 14, literally 14, 15, 16-year-old girls. Now, any responsible male is not going to act on his urges. And 16, 17, 18, 19. You know, people call us people disease. It's actually in the nature of a lot of young women to try to get with an older man that's 30 or 40. Whether women will admit that or not, there's a long history of that in our society. But yet they've set all up for the man to be the criminal, the pedophile. But they don't seem to have a mental illness description for the 13-year-old who's seeking out a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old who's trying to grow up too fast. Where is the mental health definition for that female? Because she's acting on a biological directive. She's not crazy. She's acting on a biological directive, a biological imperative. So she brought to work, and she's working next to me, a book by the title of 50 Shades of Grey, but she's not reading it. It's just out there. She was sending a signal to me. She was sending a signal to others in a very subtle way that she was exploring not only in sexuality, but fetish at the age of 14. That was her penthouse letters. And I thought that was awkward that not only was that considered normal, or a girl can get away with bringing a book, but I can't bring a book or a computer to work, so it's also multi-issue. But that pop culture can be so influential that they can influence 13, 14, 15-year-olds to go out and buy a book that's basically like Penthouse Letters, but I haven't read it. I know what Penthouse Letters is like from being 14 and being curious and being at the bookstore. That stuff was right there, but I haven't read 50 Shades of Grey. And I'm not interested in watching the movie, and I would be even less interested at dating a woman with an obsession with that. Because I, as a male, can respect myself less today knowing what I know. I'm no longer 29. I'm no longer 30. I'm no longer 31. I'm 37. I'm living off the grid. I'm no longer in Portland. I'm no longer in that society, but I wonder if the female society is a little like the female Portland society. According to the study, it's about the same wherever you go with regards to how kinky the women are becoming, how accepting of violence towards women they're becoming. And I've been feeling this in the Matrix. I can feel sexuality becoming contaminated within our whole planet. I feel sensitive enough to pick up on that and how this is leading to the American human trafficking epidemic. There aren't men like me in your society of millions. 300 million, was it 350 million? That are using digital media to say these wars are heading to an American slavery, and it's not the Muslims that are bringing it. You have people that are saying slavery is here, American slavery is here, but it's the brown skins, it's the Muslims. And then it's just a coincidence that I have no allies and I live off the grid after years of giving you content. Very few of you to none of you are off-grid allies. And I can't help but wonder how many of you, or at least my audience in the past, have been adversely affected by this racist programming. And to be programmed to only want to procreate with or to be with men of your own kind. Unless also, this isn't racism to black men. There is mind control for the white girl to be with the black guy, even if he's a bastard. And I would say that would be the carnal nature of the female who is chasing her powerful orgasm. As they say, once you go black, you never go back. Well, here's a story that I read last night, and it ties in with this. This ties in with the female silence regarding male aggression. Also, the denial. The denial can be so strong in their lust for the male that they can act like they are mentally ill. So here's the case. A guy, and I believe I actually seen him before. I think he's been working there a while. But a guy that's been bouncing for years at the Belmont Inn in Portland, a black man who was married to a beautiful white woman, fiance, actually. He was engaged. But see, that wasn't enough for that bastard who just had it all, right? He attempted to kill a woman, stabbed her 20 times, that he was making out with when he stayed at the bar after 2 o'clock. Closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. So, Mr. Dude, as the females want the alpha male, even if he's sticking his penis in multiple women at once. Oh no, they're not expecting the man to be an honorable man. This woman at the bar is making out with this guy who's engaged, leaves with him after he requests that she leave with him. And they're walking down to Taylor Street, 3300 block Taylor. The police find the woman in a pool of blood. Dude knocks her out and stabs her over 20 times. That's pretty freaking crazy when there's over 20 on the face, the hands, and the body. Over 20 times. So, like a lot of idiots that do this stuff with and they get caught, and then you look on their profile, and there's their wife. There's this beautiful wife with all of her white children. See, because it's socially acceptable in this society, because he's a black male, he's not an Arab, he's not a Middle Eastern, he's a strong, strapping black male. So because she's turned on, right, by whatever orgasm he gave her, in whatever way he gave it to her, in the way that she needed. She stood by her man, and she's still doing that. So she believes he's innocent, and he could be innocent, but they found blood on the dude's doorstep. They found blood on the dude's doorstep. And a couple comments, though, about the male. It doesn't matter the racial background of the male. There are all these white killers. It's not about that. It's not about that. But it is about the fact that here we do have a mixed race couple, but it's not really about that man being good. He's just another supposed alpha male jock who's going to, knock people's teeth out. Maybe that's what got her turned on in the first place, seeing him knock somebody out. Here, now let's get engaged and have our powerful orgasms together. And it's animalism. And that's the problem with the world's women, that their sexuality is like wired with regards to the powerful O. And those men that are fulfilling that powerful O, even if they're killers, even if they're cheaters. On a side note, the heavy stimulation to violence and sexuality might make healthy orgasms harder for a lot of men and women. Seems that a lot of men and women with also health issues, they're doing more and more risky things. They're getting in more and more risky relationships based on being with that person that's going to rock their world. People are acting like they're friggin' sex slaves. People are acting like they're friggin' sex slaves. And I see people act like they're friggin' sex slaves, but also some people also become afraid of sex. I'll tell you what, a lot of women will act like they're not ready for sex with a certain guy because they don't want sex with a certain guy. That doesn't mean they're not having sex. There's a lot of games that women play with men. There's a lot of ways in which my emotions have been played with. A lot of ways in which I've seen people have sex for me just for my body and really be repulsed by the real Alex. Thus, we never kept seeing each other. I was just used just once and thrown away. Once it was clear what my real interests were. And to wake up to this reality that most American women are not going to be opposing the rape of the Afghan women, or even things within our own society, or supporting my work, either verbally, morally, emotionally, spiritually. I'm going to read this and kind of wrap things up. Popular feminist narrative would have you believe that porn is largely consumed by men and that depictions of violent or at least rough sex would be primarily a male-dominated interest. This is untrue. According to Seth Stevens, David Witz, who says that porn featuring violence against women is more popular among women than men. His findings might explain the popularity behind 50 Shades of Grey, a series of novels among female readers. And I just told you, a young female reader that I speculate was trying to send a message that she was open to experimenting with certain things for any dude that would try to manipulate her or use her. As for myself, I avoided looking at her in the eyes after that because the whole thing felt real weird and real sad. Speaking of Vox, in an interview about how Google data proves that most Americans lie about their sexual preferences, the researcher and author of Everybody Lies asserts that more women enjoy the genre compared to male porn watchers, despite common sense and political correct claims to the contrary. And that's common sense. Like typically before the internet, porn magazines and videos that men used to have to rent, people used to have to rent. Well, that would require that woman to go into that place. And there might have been some, and there were, But with the internet and the perception of doing it anonymously, now we're seeing what it's like now. But 20 years ago, was that the case? 30 years ago, when hardcore magazines were sold at a local grocery store, club, penthouse, hustler, people would literally have to look someone in the eye and buy a magazine. They couldn't just hide behind a computer. So maybe in that case, it was mostly men. Now, right, with the sense of anonymous activity on the internet, it seems that that's not the case. And it makes sense to me. It makes sense to me that this would be the case in a world where there shouldn't be this many rapes going on, without the female American population being upset overall with the left right system, with the men that they've picked. And that will include men that they have picked that the last 2 decades haven't once made a YouTube video, haven't once gone to a protest, haven't once said something intellectual, just sitting there in their own little life. And see, that's really why women prefer the man who's not the activist. So the man's energy is about them and their own little home, whether it's off grid or somewhere else. Their life with that man, it's going to revolve around that woman if he's not working. He's either working or he's a homeless dude, right? But he's still the dude, making it all about the woman. Even if he's an asshole and he slaps her or beat her. Maybe she's desiring that on a level, as she feels very unattracted to men that would never hit a woman one day in their life. I have never hit a woman. One day I was attacked by a group of people. One of them happened to be a female. That was 13 years old, 14 years old. That was a different story. Being a little kid, being attacked by other wild hyenas. As an adult, in relationships, never. Do I know many, many women, though, that stay with men that hit them? And on a subconscious level, are those men hitting them to keep the women? And I think on a primal barbaric sexuality on a level that women don't understand, I think for the most part, we have our answer. Speaking of Vox, in an interview about how Google data proves that most Americans lie about their sexual preferences, the researcher and author of Everybody Lies asserts that more women enjoy the genre. I already read that part. Porn featuring violence against women is also extremely popular among women, said the author. It's far more popular among women than men. He says, I hate saying that because misogynists seem to love this fact. Fantasy life isn't always politically correct. Not just misogynists. It's people that actually want to see women evolve beyond their own sexuality. And if a man or a woman has an obsession that's unhealthy with violent pornography, that's going to affect their actions in the world. They might find themselves to be outrageously apathetic with regards to women being slapped around. And again, I make these references to what other men and women watch, even at young ages, not pornography, but it's just regular TV. It's considered entertainment, but it's not real wrestling. And they'll have a diva or a woman being grabbed by her hair, being picked up in front of men and women and little girls and dropped on the ground. And the crowd cheers, and the crowd cheers. And I scan the crowd and I see the women cheering. They're cheering for the woman with her hair being pulled. I also heard this early on that a lot of feminists were in some really weird sexual acts, even if they're feminists within their front with what they are. And what I can say is, coming across this information, Google data is basically called a digital truth serum. Um, it makes me sad. It makes me kind of grossed out by human sexuality, period, even if it feels natural. Even that which feels natural, which I'm not hating on my own body's senses and cravings. I'm not hating on that. I find it sad at times that we're in these kind of bodies. Our sexuality is not currently being used, and I don't think I've experienced it for a long time, to experience real love making or love back and forth. It's this bizarre monkey um, activity. And how quick a woman could also throw a man away like a whore, treat him like a whore, act like a whore herself, once she's got a taste of his dick, once she's hopped from cock to cock. Um, Once she hears a guy like me talk about what he really feels, that he questions whether Obama is the Messiah, and doesn't believe that 9/11 was committed by Arabs or Afghans. Something like that, or doesn't like Donald Trump or whatever. I've gotten that from a lot of women. So what do you think happened on 9/11? Like the day after. What do you think about Obama? And it's like, you deliberately made sure we never got into this beforehand so you could get what you wanted. As you asked me if you could stick your hand down my pants. But we're then in a sexually liberated society, and I'm going to get through this, folks, but I really need to talk to you about all this. In a sexually liberated society, where is the love? If there isn't love, and there's fear regarding two hearts coming together and hanging out more than a day, how are we liberated? How are we not then enslaved to sex addiction, to kinky behavior? And I'll also say, because this isn't discussed, look, I don't know what pornography was like necessarily 100 years ago or 200, so it's difficult for me to compare. But I heard there were some really messed up things that happened in the Middle Ages or something, that S&M has its origins in Europe, in the Western world. It's funny how they have all this stuff about Muslims now when the Western world puts out this propaganda and pornography to the Middle Eastern world, to Arabs, to blacks, to whites. I'm not saying that it all leads to rape. I'm saying it leads to an unhealthy society in the end. In the end. Even though I guess there may be some elements of it that are okay. But sexuality isn't someone or something that people necessarily think is something that they need. It's something that we struggle with because it's a part of us. I gotta eat. Ooh, son, I'm cold. Sexuality, cravings, it's a part of us and our body. The way it's expressed right now by humans and women, it has very little to do with openness and love and change in the world. It's barbaric. And we continue to see lower intelligent, unconscious, almost Neanderthal splice gene humans that think they're like superior race, whatever, because their skin tone, because they get to fit in the box of white. And the more of these animals that think that they are superior, that are running around demonizing others with racial slurs, they're the least thing or the last thing that comes to mind with regards to superior genetics. I see inferior genetics. I see barbaric sexuality. I see an American society where the men and women are procreating more people like them. And see, now you see why they're afraid of people like me that are outside the dominant gene pools, that start reading reality differently. When are the women ever going to realize I read reality differently? I interpret reality differently. What we're doing as Homo sapiens, what our spirits and souls are doing within this body. What I talk to you today, for some reason, is only laughed at because the negativity is so strong. And because the bodies of much of these women cannot be attracted to someone like me because I'm seen as too opinionated. But you take the guy over there screaming about death metal and genocide, right? Because he's giving it all he's got as a Viking, as he channels the warriors of past. And so those of his tribe indeed, they're gonna gyrate and feel that vibration. They'll be throwing their underwears or whatnot. So women are just doing that to be cruel to me for reasons they won't address on their own. When they play that game of, I'm going to contact you to tell you why you're an undesirable DNA, why your ideas, undesirable, unwanted in this world for future generations, a procreation or continuation of that line. You'd be the last women, Alex, to continue your line on the earth. And I know this is real because the devil of this world doesn't want my line to continue, specifically what I am now, the combination of both, and that what is already there. And it's almost as if the biological road ends here, right? There is a part of me, and I'm going off on a tyrant, I feel like something was completed that's good within me. And I don't really want to procreate. I don't think this is the right time. But I'm often going, but why not? Why should I just tell myself I'm not going to procreate and think it's because I'm being more conscious than other men who are procreating, only to mask up the greater fear of the women of this world wouldn't want to procreate with what I am because they are of the body. and they are living in this world. Unless they've actually become an outrageously conscious individual that's overridden false programs of inferior DNA, that woman won't find me. That woman won't feel that feeling. That's why others that are just, oh, I like his spiritual thoughts, but there's something else that's not quite right. Yeah, I know what it is that's seen as not quite right. Whether you are conscious of it or not, I know what keeps you back. I know what scares you. All I want to do is just move on from this lifetime. I want to dance. I want to wine and dine. I want to meet those women on that other planet or place to where their global structure isn't fried. Like what they call French fries at McDonald's, being put into some sort of a washer, bunch of soap being put in and washing, washing, minds washing, day in and day out. Terrorist woman gonna get you, brown skin. Terrorist woman gonna get you, brown skin. Brown skin. Fallen DNA. Ooh, suppression against women. Ooh, public executions. Yet the public executions from the west to the east continue. This demonic, violent pornography machine just explodes out of the west to infect the entire world like an archon. Let me just finish this, and then I need to stop. Start my day, get some coffee, get ready to start posting my Socius website as I work from home. Fetishes in India, a rise and increase in breastfeeding, which is not typical, I guess. And then in Japan, it's tickling. So there's going to be element of fetishes that aren't necessarily evil per se. It's just a rise in people using technology to watch things that they really want to watch because there's something really lacking either in their life or really on a deeper level, we're being affected by what's happening to everyone. So someone's sexuality in Portland, I think, could be really affected by the Willamette River and all that sewage, raw sewage that's flowing in that river. It's dirty. And there's something dirty about the sexuality and dirty about bedding down with some of these people that seem to be willing to bed down with the dog as much as they would a bad man. But it's like, how do you have respect for a society that would literally bed down with dogs, the two-legged or four-legged versions? And then where is this going to go? Knowing that human society, female, male psychology can be absolutely hijacked for the most part and redirected to a weird place. And we're starting to see where that weird place is going. Shit, I can talk about this stuff for hours, but I probably should come back in another video and restart a new theme. Why are they trying to mindfuck us men to now desire robots? And how can this go wrong? So, last point. Certain sexual fetishes could come about for the male and female through a desire to restore us to an active nature. So it could be said that some women are looking for more of the dominant male within the video stuff because they're seeing weaker males in our society, and they're looking for a sense of. It doesn't mean that they're spiritually evolved. It means their DNA is looking for something stable. It's going to make things work again. It's going to fight off the enemy. And sometimes to fight off the enemy, you show what a man is to a woman. And unfortunately, few women have shown they appreciate the good men of this world. And I'm now 37. I can leave this planet anytime, be murdered, killed. But I know what I came here, what I witnessed, and what I saw. I know what's going on.